Okay, so Brian, do you want to make your presentation?
Sure. I know everyone's heard me speak a little bit, but thank you for having me here tonight. We appreciate all the consideration we begin. My name is Brian O'Hare. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Billy Casper Golf for the Northeast. I cover our area from Delaware to Cape Cod. This is Ryan Phelps. He's our regional manager here in the northern half of that territory. Ryan and I are both based in New York. Ryan's based right here in Westchester County. I'm based just over the river in Rockland County. So what we want to do is, I'm sure there's a lot of questions and answers that'll go deeper than what I'm going to present tonight. So what I want to do is just go through a few things that are high-level items about our company, give a little bit of perspective of who we are and what we do, and then really open it up to questions and answers. It's important for us to have every question vetted, and we want to make sure that everyone's had a chance to say what's on their mind. Go ahead, Ryan. A little bit about the golf industry first. Those of you who've been following the news in recent years about golf, you can see that over the last several years, golf continues to struggle. We've gone from about 30 million golfers down to about 26 million golfers in the last several years, and it was higher in the late 90s with the Tiger Woods boom, and it's become a struggle. Golf is very time-consuming sport. It's a very expensive sport, and there's more and more competition on people's working lives and family lives. So it's been a challenge to hold on to the supply of golfers in the industry. A little bit of what's going on in the golf industry. Back in 2001, you could see there was about 252 new golf courses added per year, and you can see that that's steadily declined. Prior to that, between say 1996 and 2001, it's about 400 or so golf courses added every year. If you add that up over a period of time, you can get a sense for just how oversupplied the golf industry has become. And Connecticut's not immune to that. The Northeast has been a little bit more insulated than most markets in the United States. Florida, for example, golf courses seem they're as frequent as 7-Elevens, and many of them are closing. And as you can see, over the last few years, there's been a correction going on in the industry. We've lost 26 and a half facilities in 2006, and it's net. It's the net between opening and closings. 90 in 2009. And you can see, the impact of the markets in the late 2008 certainly had an impact on the business. So what we like about that is that the industry is coming back to us. There's a correction in the industry going on. We think that as the baby boomers, come into their retirement ages, we think we'll have a lot more golfers coming into the industry. A little bit about Billy Casper Golf. BCG was founded in 1989. We're a privately held company. We're not funded by any public companies or Wall Street investment firms. Founded by two people, Peter Hill and Bob Morris. A nice story is that Peter Hill actually grew up here in New Haven and was a caddy here at Woodbridge when he was a kid. And Peter Hill's listed as one of the more powerful people in golf. He's on the board of the National Golf Course Owners Association and the National Golf Foundation, and he's thrilled to hear that we have an opportunity to develop a partnership with the town, having walked the loop many times at Woodbridge many years ago. We operate currently, it's just about 134 courses now. Over 70 of those are municipal. We are the largest municipal operator in the United States, and we're thrilled about that because we know that municipalities often have to make a very difficult decision about the management of their golf courses, and some municipalities make the choices that they should not be in the golf business, and we're thrilled that we have become the vendor of choice. As a result of our growth, we've got over 5,000 employees. We handle about 4.5 million rounds of golf annually, and that's played, and I'm going to touch on this later how we know this, those rounds are played by almost 2 million unique contactable golfers. BCG, as you've heard us talk about our structure of our agreement being a third-party management structure, we don't just operate under that agreement. We own several golf courses, we lease several golf courses. Up on Cape Cod, we lease the Falmouth Country Club from the town of Falmouth, where we take all the operational risk and responsibility and pay a rent back to the town. So we go about this from an owner's mentality. You can see we like to underwrite deals and make projections based on how we would spend our money and where we would invest our money and what we think what would yield the greatest return for us. And we take that expertise and that knowledge back to you when we recommend what we think is the best way to maximize your businesses. We have a good significant presence here in the Northeast. The picture on the top left is our Northeast stretch. You can see that it goes from all the way Northern Virginia all the way through Connecticut. The one on the right is a little bit more local. You can see we have 3 in New York. We actually have 1 on Long Island. You can't really see it there. We have 3 in Connecticut, 1 in Cape Cod. We've got, I think, 5 in New Jersey. In total, I think we have 22 or 23 facilities in the Northeast. A little bit of our local experience. For those of you not familiar, we operate Lyman Orchards Golf Club, which is in Middlefield, Connecticut. We operate Winterberry Hills and Oxford Greens. Lyman Orchards went through a fantastic renovation a couple of years ago. Spent several $1 million renovating their Jones design. Lyman Orchards is also about to open up a new 9-hole facility, which is exciting because it's a sign that there's opportunity coming for new growth in the business. Wittenberry Hills, one of the nicely regarded facilities, #1 public course in Connecticut. This is some examples of some of the attention and public relations and media coverage we've been able to procure. We opened Wittenberry Hills, we opened Oxford Greens. We've been with Lyman Orchards now since 2005, and I'm proud that in each of those situations we've been renewed. And Wittenberry Hills is the municipal course I mentioned earlier, owned by the town of Bloomfield. Why Billy Casper Golf? As I mentioned earlier, we take an owner's mentality. It's important for us to deliver results. You know, the agreements that we get involved in, it's about how long do we think the relationship can last. And those relationships are typically judged on the results that we provide. If we don't produce the results and you're not happy with our services, you're not going to want us there, and we're not going to be providing value, and you'll make a change. So it's important for us to go with an owner's mentality, be conservative with your money, and be respectful of what's important to you as an owner, and hopefully have a mutual rewarding relationship as a result. We have a regional support team. We have true regional management in our company. Ryan Phelps does not oversee a single property. He oversees about 8 or 9 facilities here in the Northeast, and he'll oversee the general manager and the course-based team. That regional support team also includes me, supporting Ryan from a senior level, as well as a regional marketing director and a regional director of agronomy. And those are people only dedicated to my area that'll focus on Woodbridge and help support and help grow the team on the ground and help provide the best support from a decision-making perspective to make sure that the results and the product are as strong as possible. We have a very strong focus on revenue, and I'll talk a little bit about some of our marketing and technology in a moment, but we're very revenue focused. We're not a company that feels that the path to growth is through expense cutting. We like to be very efficiency minded, as you'll see in a couple of bullets there. But our goal here is to figure out a way, how do we increase market share through providing a greater value to the guests, having a better marketing approach, and understanding what's important to our customers so that we can provide relevant services to them. We take a very guest-focused approach. We have an ACE, the Guest Experience Service Training. It's a proprietary service program that we developed 5 years ago. And this takes each of our employees through customer touch points and trains on each of those, what the expectations and standards are. And again, I'll touch on that a little bit deeper in a moment. We're experts in efficiency management. Things like our national buying power, things like our labor decision making, our ability to provide value-based labor structures for municipalities, especially where you're not burdened by some of the public labor laws, are things that help us provide a greater return for our clients. I mentioned earlier our local market knowledge. You can see total 22 courses. That's actually now 24 courses. And we're committed to this region. Of those 22 courses that we listed there, we own or lease 11 of them. So we have economic interest in 11 of those. So we like to stand behind what we say we can do. Just a couple of samples. This is a little bit of a blind comparison about some of our results in the Northeast. You can see that we run some pretty good operating margins. So the top line there is the revenue, and then the blue drops down as a value of the NOI. So you can see we run from anywhere in the mid 600s in profitability on a $1.5 million revenue to just about $1 million, 1.2 million on a $2 million revenue stream. So we understand that operating at a high margin is important, but we can never come at the expense of long-term stability of a business. Touching on that regional support again, I mentioned myself. Ryan is the regional manager, director of agronomy, whose name is Matt Fauerbach, director of marketing, John Ramsden, and then we have an entire suite of corporate support services. All of the payroll administration, the HR and benefits administration, the accounting, management, accounts payable, the IT and the POS oversight, marketing communications, all the people who will work on that collateral that needs to get created, and the PR firm that works on the press releases we need. That's all provided as part of our management fee, and none of that is done at any additional fee to you. ACE, the guest experience, it all starts with how we interact with our guests. I mentioned earlier how important the relationships are for us with you. Well, they're more important, frankly, with the guest. And we shouldn't be misled by who we actually work for. We work for our customers. Our customers set our pricing. Our customers are going to decide whether or not this is a rewarding purchase for you and a rewarding experience for us. So we focused on making sure that where we're touching our customers is at the highest level of quality, and we're trying to continually get better at our service experiences. This is an example of our customer journey. It starts when they make the game. Who do they call? How do they make the game? Are we helping them get people to play with? How do they make a tee time? Then when they arrive, what's supposed to happen when they arrive at the club? Pre-start and warm-up. How accessible is the driving range, or what information do we provide? When we start the game, what's the starter experience like? What kind of information are we sharing? Is that information different for people who've been here 30 times in the last 3 months than it is for someone who's here for the first time? We like to make sure that those are tailored to who our guests are. The beverage cart, making the turn, what happens after the round? A lot of times you find that people don't really get a great impression as they're leaving. There's no one to help out, they have questions, they don't know where to go. And then after the game, what are we doing to follow up and try to get that customer to return? How do we get those customers to return? We take a targeted marketing approach. Our recommended POS system is through a firm called EasyLinks. We are their largest vendor, and it is an online T-sheet. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that is something that allows for a call center in Chicago to handle a lot of the incoming reservations traffic. So that way we have people who are trained on Woodbridge. The customer doesn't know that he or she called Chicago. They call the golf course and they get someone who's dedicated to answering that phone to say, thank you for calling Woodbridge and how can I help you? That person is not also checking in golfers and is not pulled and puts people on hold, and there's all the things that sometimes frustrates you when you try to make a tee time. But we have it online as well as a call center that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week and 365 days a year. This allows us to capture data. Data capture is very important to us. What we'd like to know is who you are and what your habits are. If you're someone who likes to play Wednesday afternoons and you've played every Wednesday afternoon for the last 7 Wednesdays, well, we want to make sure that you get a Wednesday afternoon special when we send one. We don't want to send you the one that's a Saturday morning special because that's irrelevant to you and you might discard it and say, I don't get stuff that really means anything to me. Understanding our customer behavior through that data capture allows us to target these guests and provide them offers that are relevant. By understanding the data of who's playing our golf courses, we can get a lot of specifics on our guests. So I know, for example, at this club, which is in Northern Virginia, just outside Dulles Airport, I know how many of our guests in our database of the 11,012 that played us in a given year, I know how many of them played 1 time, how many played 2 to 5, and so on and so forth. So I might use this data to say, boy, I've got 167 and over 212 people that have played me 41 times or more. Well, that might be a good course to have a nice annual program or a membership product, because I know if I send that out, I've got some people who are playing a lot of golf and I might be able to reinforce that loyalty. But I also have 5,600 people who are only playing me once. That's 51% of my customer base. What do I need to do to get them to play twice? Well, I don't need to send them a membership offer because they're not going to want to play 30, 40, 50 times. I want to send them an offer to come back for that second round of golf. So knowing this information allows us to tailor, again, those marketing services that we provide. It's all focused on driving behavior. A few of the categories that we focus on are new golfers. If you're a new golfer at one of our clubs, you get an automatic email. Sometimes it comes while you're still on the golf course playing that first round of golf. And it might say, it's been a pleasure to meet you. We'd like to have you back. Why don't you come back for whatever that offer is at the moment. We know that the retention rate on a golfer who plays you 1 time is substantially lower than a retention rate of a golfer who plays you twice in the following year. So our goal is to get that second round of golf because we know it gives us a better chance of having that relationship long term. So this data allows us to make those decisions. Top golfers, I don't want to send a top golfer, something that says your next round's free necessarily. I might want to have a VIP tournament for our top golfers that says the top 40 people, we're going to invite you in for an event. It's going to be a low-cost event, and we're going to say thank you and say we appreciate the loyalty that you have. I think we've all probably been in retail environments where someone's sent us something that says you're a loyal customer, we want to thank you. Low volume golfers, people who aren't playing us as frequently as we like, we want to try to do things to stimulate that volume. If somebody plays a couple of times, we might say play 3 rounds of golf and get the 4th one free. Something that stimulates that behavior. Initiators, we know who's made more tee times than that person's played. So if you might have someone who's played 25 rounds of golf but is responsible for 75. Well, I might want to send that person something that says, you know what, if you bring us 16 golfers, we're going to get you, free dozen golf balls. Or if you keep, if you bring a foursome and the 4th person's free. And we want to stimulate that initiator activity. These are the people who, are setting things up for people. We want to be their travel agent, so to speak, and help them make that. And at-risk golfers, I can tell you who's played us at a certain rate over a period of time, and that rate has dropped off. And we can send you an email that says, hey, we miss you. Where have you been? We'd like you to come back. What do we need to do to get you back? So again, relevant offers based on people's behavior. Here's just an example of something we might say send to a low volume golfer. There's that play 3 rounds and get 1 free. This happens to be something we did at Oxford. So again, that's all focused on stimulating behavior. On the community side, especially in municipal environments, it's also important that we're good stewards in our community. We focus on children, we focus on families. You can see we have free seminars for beginning women golfers. We have a women in golf program that's been very successful for us. We're partnered with the PGA and focusing on Get Golf Ready, which is going to be a successful program. We know that, as you saw earlier, the amount of golfers in the business are declining year after year after year. We have to do things to be better as an industry. This isn't a Billy Casper Golf challenge or a Woodbridge challenge. As an industry, how do we get more people interested in golf? It's a tough game to play. I mean, none of us play as well as we want. It doesn't matter how good we are. And many of us have gotten frustrated playing the game, and it takes time, it takes money. We want to try to introduce kids at a young age and get families involved in playing golf together. So some of the community things we do. Some creative programming, just a couple of other examples. You can see it again, play 3 rounds of golf from now to July 1, you get 1 free. Customer Appreciation Night there. We do a resident day in Evesham Township down in southern New Jersey, where it's really a very low-cost day for the guests, and we do things like bouncy castles and all kinds of fun. We show a movie out near the practice screen, and we have some fun with kids. We do face painting, and it's a lot of fun to get people to come out. And just some people maybe who don't come to the golf course, they're not golfers. Only about 7% of the population plays golf. So where's that other 93% doing? What benefit are they getting from the recreation that you have here? So we try to do things to expose some people that makes the community feel like, hey, owning this is rewarding to me too. Go ahead, Ryan. And then we have a PR firm. It's called Buffalo Communications, and that's all part of our management fee as well. It's the largest golf lifestyle PR firm in the world. And we focus on trying to get the best type of advertising that you could possibly get, which is the free kind. And that's getting people to write about nice stories that we have, and getting people to pick up on improvements that we've made. Rankings, as you saw for Wittenberg Hills, Oxford Greens, things like that. Getting people to talk about that and promote the virtues of whatever facility we're operating. We also take very seriously, obviously the #1 product that we have is our golf courses. And we focus a lot on trying to provide the best value and the highest quality product at the lowest price. And that's never at the cost of quality. We like to go at it with a low cost, high impact mentality. You can see a couple of these examples are just paying attention to detail, and establishing mowing patterns and heights of cut and all the specifics of a golf course's conditioning that is appropriate based on the revenue and the expense tolerance that a facility has. A lot of talk about environment today. We're very environmentally focused. Every golf course in our system, all 134 of them, have a requirement to pursue certification through the Audubon Cooperative Sanctuary. I'm proud to say that the 3 courses in Connecticut are fully certified. In Massachusetts, Falmouth Country Club actually is the only public golf course on Cape Cod. I think only the 2nd in all of Massachusetts, or only public golf course in Massachusetts and only the 2nd on Cape Cod that is certified. Very, very focused on the environment. Pesticides, insecticides, and herbicides can all be controversial, especially in a municipal situation. So being a partner with the environment and providing for natural habitats for wildlife and being sensitive and reducing water and reducing chemicals is something that we take very seriously. We actually have a national director of environmental programs that focuses on where our superintendents are in this certification process. And then, as we touched about our buying power earlier on, this is just an example of some of the national accounts that we have. You can see we talked about turf equipment. You can see Jacobson is on there, and Toro, and John Deere. We think that we have the best buying power in the industry because of the size of our firm. EasyGo is on there, Club Car is on there, Waste Management, Cintas, and you can see the list goes on of the value that we provide to our accounts because of the scale of some of our purchasing as an organization. So that's it on Billy Casper Golf. I wanted to breeze through. I know that some of you probably haven't been paying attention to me. You've been waiting to ask your question, and I wanted to give everyone that opportunity.
Why don't you address just, if you will, the rounds of golf you anticipate occurring at Woodbridge this coming year?
Right. I know historically you did roughly 22,000 rounds. And in our pro forma that we provided to you, we have that being in like the 27 to mid 28,000 round range, and it is a variability based on the rates that we ultimately decide. We're very, very confident in that. There were some questions during our interview process about whether or not a golf course can tolerate that many rounds. And transitioning away from a private club into a public club, that might seem like a big jump. I can tell you that without getting specific about some of the other facilities in Connecticut, if we achieved the 28,000 rounds, it would still be significantly lower than any of the other 3, even if you split Lyman into one facility. So we still think that that's a relatively conservative estimate. Now, the rounds are in a relationship with the revenue, and we think that that rounds balance of 28,000 rounds is the right amount of volume for a golf course like Woodbridge from ability to get around it and play and the ability to tolerate the impact on course conditions, and based on what we see the value of the property in the market being. Because, you know, in that 28,000 rounds, you know, you might be able to do 20,000 rounds and do X amount of green fees, and do 28,000 rounds and do a similar amount of green fees based on the pricing. But you're going to lose the opportunity to sell your food and beverage. You lose the opportunity to maybe stimulate high volume players and get those memberships that you need. You lose the opportunity to introduce people to your pool programs, and so there's a lot of benefits to trying to get a large amount of volume. Golf courses typically can tolerate a substantial amount of rounds before it really has wear and tear on their turf conditions. And I think a club like Woodbridge, and we're very familiar with older style Northeast golf courses built on push-up greens with Poa annua grass that is a little bit more heat, gets stressed under heat. Until you get into the 40 to 45,000 round range, you really don't see a challenge with dealing with that kind of volume.
Would meeting these volume goals require any alteration to the course?
No. No, I think what is critical for us to do, if we're successful tonight, what is critical is to sit down with the commission and plan out, look, here's our recommended rate structure, here's our recommended membership pricing, so that we can put together to say, here's the plan that we think is going to be necessary to achieve those goals. But no, we don't think, there's no alteration to the golf course. There is.
I mean, shrinking or enlarging greens or some of the variables?
No, we're very familiar with the report that the USGA put together regarding the capital needs of the golf course. You know, commission were, and we've worked with the USGA a lot, was don't do anything just yet. Because what you'd like is for us to go in and evaluate and say, look, based on the traffic that we're going to get, here's what we're really seeing. You know, there's recommendations on drainage. Well, we don't know exactly what drainage is already there. It needs to maybe be repaired or blown out. So there's a lot of things from a consultant's perspective, the USGA can say, you need this, this, and this based on what we see. Well, it's kind of like, you know, well, what can we go and do in-house for you first and show you greater efficiency rather than going and spending hundreds of thousands of capital. There may be a greater cultivation program that can be done. There might be, you know, some in-house work that you can do on tree canopy and root pruning that can make a tee box more tolerant, even though it's still too small. The things recommended in that report are not unique to Woodbridge. They're very common in Northeast golf courses built a long time ago because none of them had tee boxes large enough, none of them had greens large enough, and trees weren't as big. So the roots have grown under the tees, and the trees have gone over the tees and the greens, and that's become challenging. But we don't think there's any major capital needed in order to achieve those rounds. The one area that we saw that is going to need some logistical navigation is, and I forget which holes it is, forgive me, is you have an area where you have to cross a couple of holes to get to the next tee box. And that's an area when it's a private club, it's something that everyone knows, and you look the right way when you go a certain direction. We want to make sure that the safety signage and the routing, the signage that tells people where the next tee is clear, because you're going to have, like you just saw, 51% of your golfers will only have been there one time. So it's important to communicate well on that.
On those rounds, the
Yes,
27.5, if the course only achieved 21,000 rounds like it did in the past, and if there is that, you know, that's a 25% or so difference in rounds, does that have sort of a direct proportional relationship on the revenue? Because when I look at the budget, I'd rather see, you know what the numbers are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
If we are on the low side, you're saying the 27 is, you know, totally achievable, but at the same time, it sounds like it, you know, it's definitely a goal. I'm concerned it's not totally realistic, and I'm trying to figure out if it's 20 or 21,
Mm-hmm.
what's that revenue number become?
Well, what I would point you to, just to clarify, is in 2010, the total revenues for the facility were about $1.88 million. In 2013, which is our full stabilized year, we're calling 2012 a partial year. Our revenue projections are $1.975 million. So you're looking at about a $90,000 revenue growth, which is about 4.5%, 4.7% on that. So the rounds jump as a percentage of historical rounds is far more significant than the revenue jump, because what we're anticipating, and this is all to be determined, our recommendation is that based on what we've seen with the pricing in Woodbridge in the marketplace, we think that there's an opportunity to offer greater value, program some of your lower utilized times, your twilight rounds or your midday rounds, program that membership so the membership can continue to grow. You want a good core base of a membership at a club like this, and get that rounds count up, but you can see that the expectation on that revenue is not nearly as lofty from a growth perspective, and that's where we go back to talking about how we underwrite these deals from a conservative perspective. That's reflective of our perspective that we think in a municipal environment, you want to be competitive from a volume perspective. You want to try to get as much market share as you can and build that loyalty through the guests that you draw to your facility. So we think that the revenue and rounds relationship, that may have a tweak here or there. We think that the 1.975 in total revenue is entirely achievable. If anything, it's conservative.
So what do you think total revenue would be if the rounds were 21,000? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, if the rounds were 21,000, it's because we don't make some of the rate assumptions that we built in. Because I don't see how the rounds are going to be. If we lower the rate to where we think it should be competitive, and I don't mean lowering the Saturday and Sunday morning rate. I mean effectively lowering your blended rate because you increase utilization in the afternoons and during the week and through some of that programming that we'll recommend, you're going to stimulate more rounds. I mean, 21,000 rounds is substantially underperforming for a municipal golf course in this marketplace. I mean, like I said, none of the golf courses that we're involved in do less than 30. And frankly, none of them, their rates are higher than Woodbridge's are. You know, Oxford Greens is, and I can't speak specifically to these numbers, but you know, Oxford Greens' rate is $89. $89 on a Saturday morning. You know, Wittenberry Hills rate for non-residents is a high rate. So, you know, this is, again, it's based on our market knowledge that we think that the golf course can absolutely do that kind of volume.
What do you as far as rounds at Oxford?
I can't speak to, it's a privately owned facility. I can't speak to that information.
Lyman also privately owned?
Yeah. Wittenberry Hills is public, but I don't know that it's my information to disclose. I thought you can probably do a freedom of information request on that. But I can say that those facilities all do more rounds than we're suggesting Woodbridge can do, and they're doing it at a higher blended rate.
Do you want to make a comment at all about the use of the clubhouse?
Sure. We also know that you got a pretty substantial capital assessment on that clubhouse and what's needed. I think the roof alone is enough to make you shake your head. And we've walked through it a number of times, and we were involved a few years ago, and I played the facility a number of times. And I think you have to take a wait and see approach. That's way too big an animal to go and tackle without having any operating history with a vendor, as far as I'm concerned. To go and make a substantial investment just to tear the thing down and then come back and rebuild. And I think the assessment report that you got was great. It talked about all the infrastructural challenges and what you'll need to do to get it to the right level. But our initial reaction is that you don't need all that unless you have, you know, grand plans for some remarkable alternative use facility with incredible banquet revenues and all those other things. You don't necessarily need that. So why don't we go in and see what we've got, and let's try to right size the portions of the building we're using. We even talked about maybe there's, you know, maybe you do something outside of that building in a short-term arrangement, you know, in some sort of a modular style clubhouse until you figure out what you really have there, because, you know, it's hard to recover some of that debt. As you look at your long-term debt options, you're gonna, you know, you're looking at, you know, we have to make sure we try to make this thing cash positive. I think the last thing you need, without any real operating history, and in fairness too, the last 2 years have been challenging in the industry, so I think you need to get a comfort level for what really can be done before you make a determination like that. We always say push back and say, look, it's easy to listen to a consultant tell you to go spend millions of dollars. We don't advocate that. You know, with the golf courses that we've built, we've gone away from some of these larger, 30-something thousand square feet, the building. We've gone away from some of these larger buildings. You know, Oxford Greens is 4,500 square feet. Wittenberry Hills is the same. Lyman Orchards is a little larger, but it's older and it's built a long time ago. So the things that we're building today are based on function. They're based on utility for our guests. So in a nice, controlled environment that lends itself to efficiency, that building, to operate that building as it's currently structured, that'd be quite a challenge.
So if you're operating on a tent, right? If you put a structure,
maybe a modular, something that we could condition, but yeah, it could be all season.
Does that hamstring you at all in terms of, I don't know, I'm just thinking of a person who's joining a club that's different from a person who wants to play around.
Right.
So a person who's going to join a club, obviously is going to be a little bit turned off. If we're not going to use the inside, then I can't imagine we're going to turn the lights on and turn the AC on and whatever. So it's sort of shuttered in a way.
Yeah, and I don't know that we're recommending to abandon the building either, but it was kind of putting out a lot of different concepts.
Well,
but I understand where you're coming from.
If you're going to use a tent, you're going to go with that, and there'd be no point for us to put money into the inside. Just to cool it alone. Does that hamstring you at all operating out of the tent, because you really don't have use of the clubhouse? You don't have commercial kitchen, whatever.
Our numbers that we've projected are based on a reduced clubhouse operation. So if that is something that is on the lower level only, still utilizing the locker room and then the snack bar for the pool, and the pool is something that obviously has the implications of what we do with the clubhouse for the pool. Our numbers build in that. And if it's a modular style facility, see the tent paints a picture of something that's essentially summer only and is nowhere for anyone to actually get out of the elements, and that's probably not something that we recommend a tent. But a modular facility, which is like a double wide, triple wide trailer, where you can lease those for a relatively efficient price, and still have a permitted kitchen inside it, and you can still do all those things. You won't have a locker room with, like you have now, which is gorgeous. But there are things you can do in the lower level of the building. As we've toured it, we know can be managed. I think you have a good fortune right now that the pro shop is separate, so you can isolate where you need to isolate. That provides you great leverage during your seasonal parts of the business. Late shoulder season, your March and April and your October, you can really downgrade what you use. What we would recommend, based on what we've seen, is start by looking away from the second level of the building, where you have the major roof issues and you have just an inherent inefficiency in trying to drive that volume right now. Because frankly, the building as it currently sits doesn't really lend itself to a substantial catering business. And if you didn't think you could drive that, stay away from it.
When you helped build this budget, and you're saying limited use, so I'm just curious, like if your definition of limited use, if there's a tournament, are you using the kitchen that's there to prepare and the dining room to serve, or no?
If the building is open, we'd use the dining room too. Yeah, sure. Why wouldn't we? But we're not looking to, we did not assume that we're going to have daily operations up on that second level of the building. We assumed that we would probably move operations down to the lower level. We still have some discussion about how the food service occurs through that snack bar or whatever else it is to provide for that. And that is what's in our numbers. I do think that if using the existing building on the lower level provides an advantage, because one, you can wall off some of that inefficiency upstairs. I know you have HVAC challenges up there and the roof challenges, and you can still provide that locker room, which is, you have it, it's great. You want to try to let your members and guests take advantage of it.
You have dinner there after. Where are they eating?
They could eat upstairs.
How are they going to get up there? There's no elevator.
I think there's ADA access through other means, right?
There is an elevator.
It's not working. It is now. Is it
working? There's stairs.
Yeah, handicapped people can't go upstairs. We had a dinner there. We had a problem because there was no elevator working at the time.
The elevator, I'm told, is now working.
It is now. Thank you.
And those are things we'd have to determine if we try.
Are there any other questions of the Board of Selectmen?
I just had a question regarding the pool. Now, we went through this, and I don't see anything in here, any mention of the pool or the tennis. Is that something that you were intended to include within, say, a membership, or to maintain memberships specifically for the pool? Because a lot of people joined just for the pool. Some joined for pool and tennis.
It's in here.
I didn't see that today.
Pool, tennis, and golf.
Yeah.
We expect that there will be a separate pool membership, which would likely include pool and tennis. And then there was also an add-on to a golf membership that would include. I mean, typically at a private club, which is how this model was built, the golf inclusive membership typically is all-inclusive, and then you step down from there and you offer kind of more of an a la carte. And we know that there are residents who would want to be members of that pool, and that's in the membership numbers that we provided. And there's a line, I don't know if we called it pool. Oh, there is pool, fitness, and tennis. We provided labor and expense in our operating assumptions.
Right, so it's not here, right? It's
anything we can.
There is something in there someplace.
Is there?
Oh, okay. Oh, you're asking.
In the agreement.
Right.
Someplace in there.
And then as far as the use of the facility, the Amity High School has practices and games, or
They use it. We've already committed to allowing them to use it. Yep.
so they would be.
And we would never recommend otherwise. We do. What I didn't mention earlier is, junior golf is tremendous opportunity, and we want to be stewards of that, especially municipal environments, because it's part of the community. We would actually even further some of our recommendations to you, like things like kids play free. Sunday afternoons at 3 o'clock, come play with a paying adult, and your kid's free. I mean, how many moms or dads don't bring their kid to play golf because it might be $75 for their kid on a Sunday, but mom and dad are working Monday through Friday, and we try to encourage that. In Falmouth Country Club on Cape Cod, where we have a third 9 holes, it's kids play free with a paying adult 7 days a week, because we just want that family access, and mom or dad will pay for the golf. So we're very open and very supportive of working with the community, working with schools. We actually would like to help the schools enhance their programs. and get involved and help provide that exposure to golf, and those are the golfers of the future, so that's critical.
We've already committed to the Amity golf team.
Right, I just want to make sure that's.
It has to be scheduled appropriately too. That's something that typically is.
Did you say the Falmouth Club is like the only one where you have a unique arrangement where you just pay them rent? You take on all responsibilities, you pay them rent?
We actually, of the 22 in the Northeast that I referenced, 11 of them are in that scenario. 11, half of those are ones where we take full obligation of the economics. So in Falmouth Country Club, we pay a minimum base fee to the town, and then we pay a share of certain performance over a threshold, but we own all the economics, and we own the upside.
Is that something you discussed with the committee?
We did discuss it here, and our comment was that the most advantageous financial position for you to be in as owners is the third-party relationship, because you get all the benefits of our successes without having to relinquish any of the ownership of the results. And agreed, as owners, you take the downside with that, and that's where you had to make a decision based on what's the right firm that you can have the most confidence in, and we're thrilled to be here talking to you about that being our firm. But the third-party relationship is easily the most advantageous, because if we're not putting up all the risk, we don't expect all the reward. At Falmouth Country Club or any other lease arrangements where we expect a much more significant reward, because we're taking all the liabilities. So, 1 year's success has to cover the next year's challenges. So, but we did have a conversation with that, and we talked about expenses, and that's how we got the discussion about the interest-free loan that we're willing to provide, because we know that as owners, you accept that responsibility, and you did it to preserve space, and you did it to better the community so that it didn't become something else right now. But we also get that there's real financial challenges that you have, and we wanted to help bridge that, at least in the short term.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You made reference to a blended rate structure, and maybe all of this is premature, but do you envision preferential rates for residents?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And that spread between the non-resident rate and the resident rate is one thing I want to make clear, is that should not be something that dissuades non-residents from coming to play, but it should be something that does reward those residents whose tax dollars are going towards funding the golf course and owning the golf course. So yes, we certainly want residents to have a benefit. At Wittenberry Hills, residents get a benefit.
And that is both for memberships and for per diem golfers?
We would recommend that.
All right, along those same lines, in terms of hiring, and again, maybe this is premature, and Deke, maybe this is a better question for you, but in the few years the town has owned the property, there have been residents working as lifeguards. I don't know if there would be caddying opportunities for residents anyway. I'd be interested in that if that's part of your vision.
You'd be interested in caddying?
We can talk about it. We can talk about it.
My favorite caddy is a golf cart. But that question often comes up, and I'm glad that you asked it. Billy Casper Golf does not back up to a facility with a truckload of people from Ohio or anything like that. We operate within our communities, and we want to staff those facilities from our communities. And we want to become members of these communities, and that's important to us. Where that sometimes can be a challenge is at some of the management personnel, because you have to get a certain level of experience and quality, and if that's not available inside a 10-mile radius from the club, then you search out. And that's where a company like ours provides tremendous value in a national search and things like that. We've already actually been searching for the positions that we assume will fill here. We haven't done anything publicly because we know that we're not your vendor yet, but we've done it internally. And so who do we have, and who might be interested in this market, and trying to prepare for that. But we expect that lifeguards and starters and rangers and pro shop attendants and maintenance crew and all of that, we expect those people to absolutely be sourced from the local area. You're welcome.
I have a question. I just want clarification on the rates. Who is going to ultimately determine the rates? Is it the commission?
It's going to be an agreement between the town of Woodbridge and Billy
Okay.
Casper Golf.
Okay.
I think the way to, on everything that we do, everything that we'll do here at Woodbridge, is we recommend, you approve, and then we execute. So we come to you and say, here's what we think you should do. And it could be on, to the degree that you want to get involved. This is the kind of hand towel we think you should have in the bathroom. Okay, we approve. All right, we're going to go buy it. These are the rates that we think you should charge for membership and outings and all these other things, and here's why. Okay, we approve. Or we have discussion, and it gets to some point where you're comfortable with it. I think it's important to clarify that we have no discretion. You've given us discretion to manage the golf course for you, but you oversee it, and that was the point you were making earlier, was that you're in control of everything. That doesn't mean you're responsible for doing everything. We're responsible for doing it all, Now we're responsible for guiding you and educating you, with what we, do all over the country and bringing that expertise to the table. But you're ultimately the judge of those recommendations. And if something is not in concert with what you think is, in line with the values of the town, then we change it and we go a different direction. The contrasting example is in the town of Falmouth. That's not the case. We kind of get to decide, what rates we want to charge because it's a lease scenario and we've got our risk. So there's a lot less of that. But in the third-party scenario, you have all the say you do or don't want, and you can keep that at whatever length you like.
My biggest concern is that we're going from an arrangement where we had none of the liability and responsibility to owning it all. So we've got all the liability on this. It's going to be a lot of upfront costs, and just hard pressed as to where we're going to find that.
I would not lose sight of the bond issue. If you had a lease arrangement, you would. My understanding, based on Code 9713 in the IRS code, is that you would not be able to go and get tax-exempt bonds, and that's always been a concern of municipalities that are eventually going to have to go out and get that debt.
That's fine, and I
yeah.
agree that that's a big issue, but I still think 27,000 rounds is very aggressive, based on what we've been doing. And I understand that you're hitting bigger numbers than that, but
Right.
we've also got another golf course in town that's just going to start operating again.
Right.
And I'm sure they've got a very impressive and very aggressive membership and marketing and
Agreed.
plan. And how do you
you have a much better
propose?
golf
Pardon me?
You have a much better golf course, in my opinion.
Well, how do you propose to lure people away from the other country, from Oak Lane or whatever it's going to be called now?
What is it gonna be called?
Traditions at Oakland.
Traditions at Oak Lane or whatever it happens to be. How are you going to?
Was it acquired by the same group that runs Wallingford?
Yes.
Paul Monk?
That's them.
Oh, okay.
So, like Tom's saying, they're currently renovating. Might be a very impressive place next season. We'll see.
How do you think that factors into this?
I mean no disrespect to the layout at Oak Lane, but it's just it's a competitive relationship. So I think we all should feel very good about the asset that we have. Through what we do and what we do best, it's the way we got to be the company that we are, is through interacting with our guests the right way and tailoring our programs and our services that are relevant to our people and treating people. Our guest vision statement is to treat every golfer to a fun and enjoyable experience, so that we know that all things being equal, people will do business with people that they like, and that you have to feel treated and rewarded. It's not there isn't a scientific formula that I could point out to tell you why we think we'll do better than the competitors. It's because we think that our track record suggests that we have, and that's why we made the subjective decision. Ultimately, at some point, we checked our references and gotten opinions on how we produce results, and we just think we're going to be aggressive at it.
Dee, you checked out the references for Billy Casper here in Connecticut on these 3 golf courses that have been mentioned. You just want to summarize?
We didn't check all 130. But what we did is we selected 3 courses based upon, one was a private course. It's actually in Mamaroneck. One is Oxford Greens because it's local and it is a daily fee course. And the third was Winterberry Hills in Bloomfield, which is owned by the municipality. I talked with, basically in each town, 2 levels of people. I talked with the general manager on the location, and I talked with a representative of the owner. Obviously, in the instance of Bloomfield, it happened to be the town manager. In the instance of Oxford and the course of Mamaroneck, it was private individuals. But I mean, in all instances, one of the questions, or we had a lot of concerns, frankly, about the number of rounds, the revenue, things like that. And one of the things that these people, and again, the owner said, right in line was, every year, they've come up with numbers and they, pretty much hit the numbers, or, except for unusual weather conditions like last year, they, basically came close to the numbers. And, one of the things, just as I guess I'll call it an aside, is that the thing probably that impressed me the most is that these people were doing all the talking. I mean, in the sense of they couldn't wait to talk about Casper and tell them, how good it's been for the municipality, for them as individuals or individual owners, And the experience in the Mamaroneck and, you know, I forget the name of the course, Brian, but.
Hampshire.
Yeah, Hampshire. I mean, you know, it's sort of interesting, and just parenthetically again, Hampshire Country Club was a private course until it went bankrupt, I believe, in 2009. And basically it went bankrupt, and all the experience is really sort of similar to Woodbridge Country Club in the sense of the membership declined to a point where they just couldn't support the operations, and it went into bankruptcy. Well, it was bought, I guess during bankruptcy by private investors, and the next year, with Casper's assistance, they went from, well, I don't know if it was 75 or 80 members at bankruptcy to 390. And again, that's the same sort of situation, I believe, that we have here. Not to get to 390, but with the right management to be able to increase that membership.
Ed, could we ask Deke to come up?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Deke, do you wanna come up and, do you have some questions for him?
Yeah, Deke, is it
Why don't you
okay?
sit-
Why don't you sit down there?
Okay.
For those of you that don't know, this is Deke Hotchkiss, who is the chair of the Country Club of Woodbridge Commission.
Can I sit?
Yeah, sure.
I haven't stand in a while.
Deke, I just want to say first, thank you for all the effort that's been put in thus far. This commission's been meeting a lot, and I know one meeting went the good part of an entire day, so it's appreciated. Okay, so let's see. One of the things I'm sorry to keep asking along the same line of question, and not that the question's not being answered, but I'm nervous that this budget is still too aggressive, and so can you talk more about how many members you think you may have over there? Did you ask any of those other clubs about the rounds? My worry is that if we come up short on the revenues to the tune of 20–25%, and the rounds are similar to some previous years, is that this is like a break even or a lose. And I like the budget the way it looks, but I'm just concerned that it's like aggressive. So as far as number of members, did you come to some number that you think is the target?
The target for
Like
members,
paid
at Country
members?
Club of Woodbridge? I mean, we haven't discussed that yet, no.
Okay.
No,
I didn't
and
know-
obviously, to a significant extent, it depends upon, well, among other things, what the charge might be, and that's something that, or charge for membership, and that's something that, you know, would be part of the next step.
Like when you guys put together this budget, if you can just help me understand, like for example, greens fees for the 2012 it is a little over $1 million.
Yes.
So is greens fees just that's people who come and play for the day and pay? That's
It's a
it.
blended rate.
Is that all it is?
That'll be daily fee or golf outing.
Okay.
So anyone, yeah. So that's
Like a tournament that
Yeah.
it all factors into that. And okay. And then where do you find the paid memberships? Like if there's pool and or golf memberships? Like
I don't know if you have that detail. You see the revenue line item for it?
Is it dues? No?
Yes.
Dues income, monthly dues?
308,000 maybe. Does that sound right?
257.
257.
Well, that's in the half in the partial year, right? I think it builds out.
323 for
Okay.
2013.
So I'm just curious, like how did you build that number? Did you come up with a certain number of paid members?
Yes, based on the assumption that we use is about 215 memberships.
215 members?
And that's a
And
split
that-
between golfing and non-golfing.
Okay. And do we know how many members we had last year? Do we know that?
We were told by MDM Golf that there were 78 golfing memberships, paying on average about $4,500, which is roughly $300,000.
How many pool? Any idea?
45. Some of those, though, were both. Well, I guess the pool memberships were of three types, that is individual, couple, or family, and I've never seen a breakdown of that.
So the numbers from MDM are higher, the gross number of, in dollar figures.
Well, using those two pieces, I mean, I've never...
Well, they're charging $4,500 a year for a member.
We made some assumptions on, and I've shared some feedback with Mr. Hotchkiss about this. We made some assumptions on the pricing of the memberships, and that breakout is not available from the perspective of what was in the financial data. It's kind of lumped as it fell revenue. We made some assumptions that membership, in order to be competitive and grow a good stable base of people, needs to be considered at a lower price. Now, again, there's no rule to that. It's about sitting down with you and presenting our plan. And there's probably some inconsistency in how we're thinking about it. I think what Mr. Conscious is referring to is may or may not include pool. We've looked at them as discrete memberships, so there's a lot of discussion that is required to be had on that. What we like to see on a membership, that is a membership at a public golf course, especially a municipal golf course, is members at public golf courses are going to look and say, am I getting the value for my dollar? Am I playing enough rounds that I feel good? Now, we completely appreciate that there are former members of Woodbridge that have an emotional connection to the club, and there's a camaraderie side of it that creates greater value than we can probably put on paper. And that's great. We want to take advantage of that and have those people be the core of our membership. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't cost someone more to be a member than it would if that person showed up every day to play golf. Otherwise, why would you commit? You know, you want the person who receives the greatest value to be the person who made the greatest upfront commitment, and then step it from there. So we want those people who are willing to buy a 7-day-a-week membership with the pool, let's say, to get a greater value on a per round basis, let's say, than someone who shows up one day. We want that to be something where if I spend more, I get more, right? And that market share commitment from a member is valuable. Think about last year and all the rain. Think about the year before and all the rain. You know, memberships don't get rained out, right? That's something that you want to have, that good core, and that still is to be determined as far as what's the right balance between price and product. But we believe that that's a good value proposition for your guests.
But we do know that 76 people were willing to pay $4,500.
It's a good starting point.
The large expenses that we might incur in year one, and on the budget, that's golf cart lease, so that's $50,000, $50,000 to $60,000. That's what it goes for a fleet of carts.
Yep.
And that'd be a multiple year lease we probably have to commit to.
Yeah, that's based on an assumption of probably a 60-month lease. So.
And 99.
And it's also based on the assumption of 75 carts. You know, we may decide to lease 60, and you can do short-term rentals of carts, and supplement the fleet by doing that.
The 99 to 120,000. That's just buying the fleet of mowers you need to take care of things. Is that what that is?
That's the maintenance fleet, yeah. And in the full build-out year 2013, I believe that goes to 135,000. So that would include an equipment package that you need. Unfortunately, you don't have any equipment right now, but I know there was a question asked earlier from the group that is all your equipment. And the life expectancy beyond that is beyond the 5-year term. It's really a capital investment. It's not necessarily an operating expense. We've shown it here as an operating expense optically. We can decide whether or not that's actually a capital line item elsewhere.
This is a pretty small line item, honestly, but a lot of these things I'm not an expert on, so I don't know if.
Sure. I'm
assuming the prices, are totally accurate, but medical benefits. If there's 4 people, the $26,000 number is actually really low. So, how many full-timers do you think there are to staff this club? I've heard 3 to 4.
Yeah, the people that would be certainly full-time would be your general manager, superintendent, and mechanic. And then after that, it's going to be based on business need. Billy Casper Golf determines full-time employees as anyone who works 10 months or more a year and 39 or more hours per week. And those are people who would be entitled to the benefits under our program. And that's the assumption. Those assumptions are consistent with how we operate other facilities.
And you don't have benefits. You don't have a group benefit program that.
No, we do
put them on.
We do. Oh, absolutely. It's a program through Billy Casper Golf.
Greg's in the same business.
Yeah, it's with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
You want us to bid that out?
Yes, so those are pretty good numbers here, Greg.
So they go on your plan, it's passed through to the town.
Yeah, well, the invoices are directly correlating to the employees that you have for that, yes. And that's through BCBS, and it's sourced out of Virginia, but it's a Blue Cross Blue Shield program.
Deke, do you feel very comfortable with the revenue projection? I mean, we keep saying just the number of rounds. I know it's just more than just simply rounds, but really it just comes down to this total revenue. And you feel very comfortable that the 27,000 rounds is what we can
I'll answer that in the way you started. I feel comfortable with the revenue. Okay, the revenue is predicated by the number of rounds and, you know, like a price for membership or a price for daily fees and things like that. And, you know, again, so far, they have talked about lower numbers for those items than at least some of the members on the commission were talking about. And so, you know, the trade, at least in theory, is that if the prices are higher, the rounds are lower. But again, I feel comfortable with the total revenue figure.
Can you just give us some insight on your committee and what you guys went through? I read all the minutes I could.
Sure. Well, we were appointed the 11th? I think, yeah, the 11th of January. We met on the 13th for organizational things, and actually by that time the RFPs, or the responses to the RFPs have been submitted, so we, you know, got all those packages, you know, did, you know, frankly sort of a brief review, and, well, basically decided where to go from there, including interviewing, you know, all 5 respondents, which was done in the following week, you know, based upon, you know, some preliminary evaluations. You know, we then, you know, took a tack of focusing on, you know, a couple specific firms, each of whom were brought back for a second level of interviews, each of whom, well, not in a commission level, but personally, you know, I did another tour of the building with. We did references, we negotiated the contract. Again, as Ed has mentioned, 7 meetings, you know, probably 20, you know, hours of meetings alone, never mind, you know, reviewing all the information that was submitted, yeah.
Do you feel like sufficient sort of consideration was given to, I feel like this is a impressive company, and so I've been trying to follow this as it's been going on, but you don't get it all reading the minutes. So it seems like, you know, you guys chose from 2 very different choices. Not that there's only 2 choices, but this, which I get, the pluses are we may have a couple $100,000 if we meet the numbers. And the minuses are, I guess, we're taking on 100% liability, which we never had before, and we could actually break even or lose money. Do you feel like your committee really weighed out the option that MDN, what I thought was sort of unexpectedly put on the table, that option where they would operate the club, no cost, we don't have to buy any capital equipment whatsoever, and, you know, we make 5% of revenue, which means if you don't go too far over $1 million, we're probably only gonna have $50,000. So I get if you hit the numbers here, it's much better. But was that a difficult decision? Did you guys really weigh that a lot, or I'm just curious?
You know, I feel that we did. And, you know, ultimately, all the commission members voted in favor of recommending Casper.
Well, one thing I'm hoping is a good explanation for it, but I just wanted to mention is on your February 1st minutes that are on the website, there's no mention of an opinion by Andrew Esposito, well, actually opinion by Andrew Esposito, Phyllis Janelle, Adolph Luciani, Alan Upland, Karen. For some reason, the opinions were, they're not there because when I was following your meetings, I was asking for the minutes. Like Adolph Luciani gave me a copy of the minutes from your Feb 1 meeting.
I don't know if you're looking at the final meeting minutes. We met again
Monday night.
Monday night, made some revisions. I don't know if they've been filed yet. Yeah.
They're posted on the website now.
Yeah.
It's just it's worth. I just think it's worth expressing that on the website. On the website right now, it does not say that Andrew Esposito expressed his concern to the financial impact that these management proposals will have on the town, as well as any potential capital expenditures that are or will be required. Mr. Esposito felt that MDM Golf Enterprise is proposing an arrangement that is best addressing these concerns. Adolph Luciani stated that in his opinion, MDM Golf Enterprises LLC proposal was in the best approach to meet the needs of the golf course while taking into account the financial burden to the town. Phyllis Janelle held MDM in high regard, but she actually chose Billy Casper Golf. Alan Upland seems to be some confusion whether he chose Kemper or Metropolitan, but
It was Kemper, I think that's a mistake.
okay.
It was Kemper.
Karen Cusick felt that this opportunity to bring the expertise of a national firm to our course may not be available in the future, and she's choosing Billy Casper Golf. So I just, I get the fact that after everyone expressed those opinions, there were some dissenting opinions. Fine. At the end of the day, it's to me, it's being represented that it was unanimous. I get there was a unanimous vote, but it is the case that 3 members of a 7-member board were in favor of Billy Casper, and I'm concerned that the minutes posted right now.
They had this discussion, and then they took a vote, and the vote was unanimous. But there was, preliminary to that vote, there was discussion of other options that you described.
But
the
those
final
aren't-
vote that was taken.
Those aren't in the minutes that are on the.
They are in the minutes that were amended on Monday night.
You have 2 different minutes for the same date.
Right.
The minutes that are approved are stamped received.
The minutes, all the minutes of these meetings were approved on Monday night, on February
Okay.
13th. That's when a vote was taken on the minutes.
Right, and
So,
they're on the website right now. So I'm just mentioning, I only found this today because I was trying to read all the minutes to make sure I was up to date, and I was surprised that the minutes on the website have these dissenting opinions removed, and it doesn't make any sense to me.
Can I,
No.
I just want to address this, and I don't know what you're looking at, Greg. I'm the liaison to this commission, and I attended every meeting. I don't know if your estimate of 20 hours is correct or not. It felt like much more. So I don't know whether you're looking at the minutes that were actually approved or not approved. I just want to emphasize, go back to your original question about who gave consideration to what. I would say that this commission, and again, I was more an observer than anything else, there was lively discussion about the options that you're talking about amongst the various vendors, and what model works and what model doesn't work, and I really feel like all of that was very thoroughly digested and very thoroughly discussed by everyone. I take issue with your characterization of dissenting opinion, because it's not so much that there were dissenting opinions as it was that people were freely talking about the options. And it is true that at the last meeting, as a group, people approved the minutes that were presented, and that as a group, Casper was unanimously decided. Now, there was an issue, you're quite right. Both Dolph and Andy wanted to make sure that in the course of the discussions that had gone on over the past few weeks, that they had given a a lot of consideration, and there was considerable discussion about MDN Golf. And that is reflected in the minutes from the last meeting. I don't know if that's what you're looking at or not. But at the end of the day, they unanimously, they voted in favor of going in this direction for a whole host of reasons that were part of these really very lengthy and detailed discussions. I think I mentioned at one meeting, this commission sat there for more than 7 hours. I mean, that's a dedicated group of people who obviously want to make this happen, and the prevailing principle that seems to be involved is that Billy Casper has an interest in making money, the town has an interest in making money, and that nexus is what really carries the day. So I just, as someone who was there, I just want to tell you that these issues were discussed in a very lively and a very thorough way by the entire commission.
I know you were there, and I just want to say again, I totally appreciate the effort of this commission. The only reason this got my hair up today was that I see two different options. Billy Casper's not a bad option, it's just they're two very different options.
And that's absolutely true.
And one represents, taking on the risk and the reward, and the other one is very conservative. And I will admit I've been leaning toward the other one. Because I couldn't make these meetings, so many of them conflicted with future building committees, so because I couldn't make these meetings, I had asked for a copy of the minutes from Dolph Luciani, and he gave me one. And I noticed in the minutes that Dolph and Andy had said that they supported MDM, and I noticed that the vote was the vote. And then today, in my preparation, I noticed that the approved minutes and the ones that are posted on the website have those eliminated. So I know that Dolph and Andy had asked for things to be added, but I was shocked to find out things were eliminated.
I can't help you with that.
I know you
because
can't, because you're not responsible for the minutes. So I just wanted to bring it up, and people can see what I'm talking about. I feel like maybe there's an explanation to it, but
Those are the minutes that there's minutes that show the discussion about MDM and the approved minutes, which has all that discussion is removed.
there's two copies of minutes. The top copy is the one that I was given by a committee member. The bottom copy is the one
I don't
on the
think
website.
I can solve it for you.
And all I can say is that the minutes that were approved Monday night included the specific references.
Right,
that
but
you
the ones that
mentioned
are
earlier.
posted don't have that.
So,
That's the only issue.
I can't explain that.
Just seems
So
odd.
I
The
think that
posting
somebody
issue.
might have made a mistake and posted the wrong minutes, if that's the case. I
Yeah,
haven't looked at
yeah.
it.
The minutes that
There's
were
no,
approved,
there,
the approved minutes,
Attorney Wine.
are you saying that somebody
excuse me,
intentionally
the
posted?
minutes
No, I'm
that
just
were
saying
approved were
that-
approved on Monday night.
But what got posted didn't show that.
I don't know what got posted.
Yeah,
They both have
I
the same
didn't
date.
look.
It says February 1st on the posted minutes.
And the second,
I don't know about that. All I can tell you as a spectator at the meeting on Monday night, they approved the minutes from all the minutes.
Well, more importantly, I think this commission on Monday night unanimously approved recommending to this board the Billy Casper option
Understood.
after having chewed up and fully digested all the other options.
Totally understood.
So I just want, in defense of the
That was unanimous.
commission, I just
That
want to make
was-
clear that that's clear to this board.
Absolutely, and it was unanimous. Totally agree. Just because my conservative nature was that I was leaning toward the other option. It's again, I stumbled upon this myself. Just did have a couple hours before this meeting when I was printing out minutes, and I just couldn't believe my eyes that the minutes that I was familiar with on this one date didn't happen to match. So I'm sure we'll figure it out.
I'm more focused on it when you
And
said that
the-
you got your hair up.
All right, that's right. The other thing is that the commission also unanimously approved this contract that's before us tonight.
That is correct. That is correct. With
So-
the,
So, does any other member of the Board of Selectmen have any questions? And if not, we can.
Points of information.
Yes.
Before they can authorize you to execute the contract, since it's going to be money that we're going to be expending from the town, does this have to go to the Board of Finance first before you execute the contract?
No.
Board of Selectmen will approve it. The budget ultimately will have to go to the Board of Finance, but the contract is the domain of the Board of Selectmen.
So the Conservation Commission of Woodbridge, the Woodbridge, the Country Club of Woodbridge Commission will submit a budget to the Board of
Right.
Selectmen shortly, based if this contract is approved. And then that'll go through the ordinary process of being approved by the Board of Finance, and then it'll be in the budget to be approved by
Or
the.
if the Board of Finance doesn't approve it, then what happens?
Then it's
You've
a
already signed the
it's
contract.
a budget issue and not a vendor issue.
Right.
The Board of Selectmen has the authority to approve the vendor. The Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen have the authority to approve the budget. If they don't like the budget, then there's gotta be negotiations on what the ultimate budget is
The
gonna be.
budget may
This
change.
would happen after you sign the contract?
Yes.
You could
Yes.
renegotiate?
No, you're not gonna renegotiate. The budget is subject to the conservation, to the commission, the Woodbridge Commission. I like to
Club
call
of
it the
Woodbridge
Golf Commission, even though we have a different name. It's subject to their approval, and then it's subject to the Board of Selectmen approval, and inherent in approving financial matters, it goes to the Board of Finance.
And to the residents.
Right, it'll be at the annual town
Ultimately
meeting for
to
the
the
budget to
residents,
be
right.
approved. This will be, whatever their budget is, will be to be considered.
I think
Okay.
it's important to emphasize, though, that Casper has represented to the Golf Commission that they're ready to start tomorrow. So if there's an issue about how long is this gonna drag out, is the club gonna open, it's been represented to us that you've already hit the ground running, for all intents and purposes.
Tomorrow might be tough, but.
Right, well, okay, day after
No,
tomorrow.
look, we understand, and you know what, you're in a remarkable position because you're making a big decision, and we
Right.
respect that completely. And you happen to be doing it in one of the warmer winters that's occurred in the last several years, so you're looking out the door at golf that could be played. So, yeah, there's pressure on you to do that, but my personal opinion is that this conversation is great because it's thorough and you're making sure that you
Oh,
make
we're
the
always
best-
thorough.
best decision. I could offer a comment, if I may, about either way, the town has risk, right? You have the risk of a vendor's performance if they take all the risk, and you have a risk of the vendor's performance if they don't. Either way, at the end of the day, you're the owner of the asset. If a vendor takes the risk and doesn't perform, that vendor's got a lot of problems, and how long would a vendor go on not making money? Likewise, if you are the one assuming all the risk and your vendor doesn't perform, how long will you go on not making money? So at some point, you, the owner of the property, ultimately has to deal with that risk. So we're very confident that the most financially advantageous position is in the third-party relationship. Before I even say that it's with Billy Casper Golf, we think that the third-party relationship is the best scenario. You're a golf course owner, and you have the inherent risk of being golf course owners, and we think this is the best opportunity for you to succeed that way.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen? If not, then, members of the public, do you have any comments or questions?
My chair now. You were comfortable. I didn't want to play the day. You know, it's okay. My name is Chuck Pine. I live at 162 Center Road in Woodbridge. I've been sitting here now, and I'm not going to add up to the 20 hours, just to maybe 2.5. Several comments as somebody who's been paying attention to this sort of at afar. Number one, the minutes thing I don't think is insignificant. Because as First Selectman Sheehy has already said at least once, well, this was done by unanimous approval of the golf, commission, which makes it appear as though, oh, this is a great idea, and there was no alternate way to look at this, and everybody's all going together. I don't think we're all going together, and I think the minutes that are posted on the website should reflect that there were concerns of other members. Why they voted with it after having those concerns, I don't know. But having seen a copy of those minutes myself and then having them not appear on the website, I think is a little suspicious. And unfortunately, a lot of what's going on in this golf course commission, I'm sorry to say this, but I will publicly, has got some politics involved in it. The people who are appointed and their involvement with other organizations in town, both parties, okay, the deck is stacked for the majority party. And I know that's the way it works. But to then go ahead and then not publish the dissenting opinions, and it is a dissenting opinion, even not a dissenting vote, I think should be made public, and I'd like those minutes to be corrected.
The minutes is approved on Monday night, reflect
But that's not what's posted. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to fix that. Okay.
It's inaccurate. I know it's not. No, maybe it's not on purpose, but it's inaccurate. These are the minutes approved Monday night. They're stamped. February 6th. That's Monday, right? No.
February 13th.
These are the minutes that are on the website.
Those are not the approved minutes.
They're not the approved set.
They're the draft minutes. They're not marked draft on the website.
You know-
I don't make this political, Chuck, but I tell you, there's 7 members of this commission.
Yep.
3 Republicans and 1
No.
Independent.
No, sir, that's not correct. That's not correct.
You a Republican?
No, he's not. You changed your registration.
He changed, well,
Yeah.
the copy I have shows him as a
Yeah.
Republican,
It's like
but
the minutes.
that's beside
Like
the
the
point.
minutes.
These people dedicated their
I
time
don't dispute that. I don't dispute that. But I would also
above
point
and beyond
out.
the call of duty.
I would also point out that according to the earlier version of the minutes that reflected some reality, that only 3 of your 7 board members actually approved of Casper. 4 were in a different direction. 1 was MIA. 3. Well, when
Not
when
true.
was okay?
And
Okay.
I take
Go ahead.
issue with
All
your
right.
statement.
You're entitled to take issue with
This is
it.
public comment.
But it's
Go
absurd.
ahead.
Phyllis wants
Go
to
ahead.
Okay,
speak.
all right, all right,
Now,
okay.
excuse me, I'd like to speak, and I am a registered Democrat. So let me just finish, please. I served for, I don't even know how many years as chairman of the Recreation Commission in town. I have at the Country Club of Woodbridge and at the Woodbridge Country Club.
I just don't want to tolerate
If those minutes, those were not the minutes that were approved, when did we last meet? Monday. I sat here, we went, Karen revised the minutes, she apologized, she had a whole packet full of minutes. We then approved the minutes as amended, and I truly take umbrage at the thought that this was anything political. I really do, honestly. We spent more time, I was away for one of them, I spent 7 hours in Florida on my vacation on the phone with a phone system that is not great. So I take umbrage that this was in any way, shape, or form a political decision. I really do. So I just have to say that.
Okay,
Any other opinion? Okay, so enough on that. Point made, point disputed. I would also say that this has become another shotgun process. That we're up against the wall time-wise and schedule-wise. The spring is going to be upon us. And it just seems to me that every time we touch anything related to this golf course, whether it be the Toll Brothers deal that had to happen right away before the referendum, that it's always an emergency. It's always an emergency with this group. And you know, proper planning prevents poor performance. And I think that there could be much better planning done by this august group to not have to be in a desperate situation. I think that part of the lesson learned from the referendum vote was that some people thought it was a bad deal, but some people thought the process was kind of shaky too. And I think to have this rush at the 11th hour makes it look like a bad process again. And I'm going to encourage this board to please plan better in the future. Every time I come up here, I seem to ask that you do that, and I'm back every time sticking my finger in your eye because it's always 11th hour stuff. Please knock it off. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Donald Salato on Green Elwood Road. I know what it's like to serve, and I appreciate the time that's been spent by our citizens, some of whom wear 2 hats and spend triple or quadruple the amount of time. I have a question of town council. Do you really think that this is in final form shape to be executed tonight, Attorney Weiner? So what are we doing? What are you voting to do tonight?
Attorney Salato, I think, Attorney Salato, I said at the beginning that there is a draft which appears to be final in almost every respect with the exception of a couple of points. I called Mike Cutler of Casper today, starting at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. He was out of the office. I hope to have a final document here tonight, but I believe it can be voted upon. In fact, not I believe, I know it can be voted on tonight, subject to those 2 additional minor
Well,
points.
maybe I can
And the
speak
let
with
me
my
finish.
review, Mr. Weiner.
And first of all,
Excuse me, just let him finish. You
and
asked
then
him a
you can speak.
question.
Attorney Salato, and second of all, Attorney Salato, I believe that this contract is very favorable to the town. I'm recommending the First Selectman to sign it. I'm recommending to the Board of Selectmen to sign it because I think it is as good as we can get, and I think we've got a top-notch organization who is willing to come to Woodbridge and meet the requirements of the town to trying to best save taxpayer money and yet maximize the golf course for the town.
Would you agree that there might be an ocean of difference between very favorable to the town and as good as we can get?
Attorney Salato, you know you've been practicing for many years, Attorney Salato, and you know that no agreement is perfect. It's a give and take in negotiations. And could there be better terms in there? Absolutely.
Could I
Do
ask
I
you
think
some
we have,
questions?
Attorney Salato, do I think we have done the best we can? I absolutely do.
Okay.
This
Can I ask you
is
some
for
questions?
public comment.
I understand.
And
Can
I
I
don't
ask some
think- I don't
questions
think it's
about the
time-
contract?
To negotiate this contract with you, I carried out my obligations for the town, I negotiated with Casper, and I'm making my recommendation.
Are we permitted to ask some questions about aspects of this proposed contract?
You may ask some questions. I'm not sure I have the obligation to dispute the legalities of this with you. If you have some broad questions, I'll be
Yes.
happy to answer those.
For instance, on page 3, where you have, I find it curious that it contains a restrictive covenant. Why should the town be prevented from offering employment? This is around just slightly below halfway down. Owners shall not offer employment. See that? Why should the town? Shouldn't a restrictive covenant exist between Casper and its employees? For instance, if somehow there's an employee that comes along that is performing very well and we sever our ties with Casper, this says that we can't retain that employee as ours. Why should we be a party to that? Why shouldn't Casper's employee be under constraints with Casper? Why should we be under constraints? That's just an observation.
This relates to an employee of Casper. This relates to probably to Brian and senior management. We can't hire people away from their company. It does not, in my opinion, apply to people who are running and working at the Woodbridge Country Club who are hired specifically for the Woodbridge Country Club. And Attorney Salato, I do believe it is entirely proper for the town not to go off and make offers to hire employees of Casper. And I feel so strongly about that I don't even understand why you raise it.
Because it's typically between the employer and employee, a covenant not to compete.
In my experience in 40 years, this is standard language for an agreement. Casper has a concern for their employees coming to the town of Woodbridge. I don't believe we would ever want to do something.
But that's between them and their
We
employees.
are talking about senior management.
Okay,
Attorney
let's
Salato.
get to page 8. On accounts, paragraph 5. Who controls the accounts? Specifically the operating account.
The town of Woodbridge controls everything in this relationship, as Brian has said. This is our relationship. We are running this. They are doing the ministerial act of carrying out the obligations of day-to-day supervision.
But this is
We control it.
They shall establish the following business accounts.
Brian, maybe you can answer that
The
question.
accounts would be in our entity's name, and as you discussed earlier,
It would be in
we have
WGN's
access and
name.
viewability into those at any time. The contract provides for any control over those funds, and we're legally obligated and acknowledge that those are your funds. And, but no, the accounts are in our entity's name.
Yeah, that's what I
The
thought.
employees are in our entity's name, and the activity will be in our entity's name.
Because the second to last sentence in that first paragraph says BCG shall use the operating account to pay all expenses. And the reason I saw that is because in the incentive management fee portion on page 9, that's how you get paid, out of the operating account. And I'm concerned that they may be able to make a determination and pay themselves even an incentive fee without prior authorization or scrutiny by the town? That's just a
That
question.
specific expense, that is the incentive fee, is payable only upon a signed invoice, or an invoice signed by the town.
And
It says that right in there.
and Attorney
I
Salato.
saw
It says
that.
payment shall be acknowledged by an invoice signed by the owner.
I
And
understand
Attorney
that.
Salato, Tony,
That
who's
answer
the
your question?
who's the financial officer of the town, will have day-to-day access of that account, and he will be checking that account on a daily basis.
Something
And
else that Tony has to worry about.
No, he doesn't have to worry about it, but I do believe, Attorney Salato, that this is a complete protection for the town.
Good, good. On page, speaking of protection for the town, on page 10, default and remedies. 9A. This is when we can be deemed to be in default as owners. The following shall constitute an event of default by owner under this agreement. Failure to timely pay. What's the definition of timely? And who gets to determine whether the town has made a timely payment? And if it hasn't, it's that I assume the contractor gets to declare us in default. Shouldn't there be some definition of what timely is?
And I'm not worried about them declaring us in default, because number one, they're not going to want to declare us in default, and number two, the
Well,
question
then
of
if you're
time,
not worried
the
about it,
question
why
of
shouldn't
time.
you have something in here?
It's specified in the compensation and fee section by the 5th of the month.
I think it is, it has to be paid by the 5th of the month.
What, and
Wait,
go-
where is that?
Paragraph 7A on page 9.
Can you look at that, Attorney Salato?
Yeah, except who determines that?
No,
5th of the month is pretty self.
I understand that, but what if there is a reason not to make that payment?
A lawsuit over it, the court would determine whether it was
Yeah,
timely
but
or not.
you know, the good lawyering is to keep us out of lawsuits.
That's true.
we're not gonna, I think there's very good lawyering on the part of both Casper and the town.
Okay, on page 11, what is material? Failure by owner to perform any material obligation set out in this agreement. What's the definition of material?
You would know as an attorney that language is a word of art that is used in many, many agreements, almost all the agreements.
As an attorney,
And
I know
it
it's
is
a word
up
of art,
for-
it's a word of mischief.
It is up for interpretation of a court if we ever get to that point. And it is my recommendation, Attorney Salato, to the Board of Selectmen, that that is a fair and common language in any agreement.
On just, maybe you can help me, on page 13, it's a carryover from E on page 12, sale termination fee, sale of club. At any time on 90 days prior written notice, this is top of 13, subject to the provisions set forth below. I might have missed something. What are the provisions set forth below? That's floating out there.
There are no provisions set forth below, so it's another language is a nullity. There are no provisions set forth below, so the language doesn't mean anything, Attorney Salato. You worried about that? Sleep well tonight, because there are no provisions below, so therefore it doesn't mean anything.
Thanks.
Anytime.
Thanks, but I won't sleep well.
Attorney Salato, I'll be happy to discuss this with you afterward if you'd like.
That's okay.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve the recommendation from the Country Club of Woodbridge Commission for adoption of the management agreement, which you have before you tonight between the Town of Woodbridge and Billy Casper Golf LLC, subject to, and what is it?
Subject to the two additional clauses, minor clauses that have to be negotiated, which should be done. It doesn't even have to be negotiated. They're basically a clause that was left out of the agreement, and I can read it to you right now so you really don't have anything to chance, and that is on the environmental clause, and I think I read it. And that is, if you can see on the second paragraph on the top of page 17, it says, BCG shall operate the club, and then it stops. There was just an omission of the rest of that sentence, and it should be, shall operate the club in compliance with all environmental laws concerning the use and application of pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, and any and all other chemicals utilized in its operations. That was left off. We have to get that put in. And then there's a typographical error on the bottom of page 9 where it says paragraph 2, interest. And if you can see at the end of that second sentence at the bottom of page 9, it says at TAN. That has to be taken out because that doesn't make any sense. It's extra words that are somehow got put in the word processing process.
So moved.
So that's got to be taken out.
And authorize me then to sign the contract.
Correct. I will second it.
Okay. Any discussion?
And instead of tan, at an interest rate?
No, at TAN comes out completely because if you read,
It's a
it's two extra words that don't belong there. If you go to the
Then it's
next,
to say at interest rate?
no, do that until the date paid at an interest rate of 5%.
So you're just taking the T off, at an interest
Right.
rate.
I think it used to be 10% interest and we changed it to 5%. He didn't take out the 10.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Just one thing,
Yeah.
under, I guess it's page 9 or 10, depending, 10 or 11, I guess, depending on what version you
What
have.
version you have?
Under 9, default and reminders. A-
Remedies.
Pardon me?
Remedies.
Default and remedy?
What did I say?
Reminders.
Reminders.
It's okay.
Okay, thank you for reminding me. Default and remedies. Number A2 says, according to paragraph 41 thereof, or is that 4?
I think that's 4L.
I think it's for,
4F, is it
4I maybe.
So it should be like 4.I.
Yeah, that might have to be true. There could be some of those that I've missed. I'll take a look at that and.
It's 4I, I think. What? Before.
See, I would just change that to like 4.I. 4 period, I period, whatever it happens to be, just.
Good point.
Okay.
well, I'll
think that's
I'll
all.
accept a friendly amendment to my motion that also subject to any correction of any typographical errors that are found upon final review.
Non-substantive items.
Non-substantive typographical errors.
All right, any further discussion?
I would like to say, first, I'm glad there are no minutes from the meetings that I held about this. I had no trouble getting a quorum each time, and I'm not sure I spent anything like 20 hours reviewing these proposals, but as I went through the 5 options the town was given, I had dissenting opinions at times. I had wavering favorites, you might say, and through my own deliberations, which might have mirrored what the Country Club of Woodbridge Commission went through deliberations with additional evidence. Certainly, gentlemen, I appreciate your presence tonight and your presentation. I am comfortable with the recommendation from the Commission, and it is consistent with again, these meetings that I had by myself, for which there are no minutes. And so with that, I'm grateful to all commission members for their exhaustive efforts, and to the liaison and town council, Mr. First Selectman.
Okay. Any further comments?
And Tony, I'm sorry.
And Tony, right.
He's a stalwart.
Okay.
He's amazing.
If there are no further comments, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5 to 1. Okay, well, thank you. And I just add on to what Lawrence has said, to thank the members of the Country Club of Woodbridge Commission for their service above and beyond the call of duty over the past 6 weeks. They put a lot of time in here. It was on a bipartisan effort. And there were differences of opinion, of course, along the way, and that's part of our process. And so we thank them, and that's what makes Woodbridge such a great community to live in.
Absolutely.
So thank you, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll see you on the 20th.